under eyes. There they are. There they go. Oh yeah. How you doing, guys? Welcome back to the channel. As ever, it is great to see you. I hope you're all keeping very well. So the video today, I'm basically going to talk you through a recent job that I lit and shot. So recently I was asked to shoot a chap called Ant Middleton, who is an elite operator, or an ex-elite operator.
My first day training in the military, I was probably about 9 stone wet. I was a runner. I was fast, I was agile, and then my last day in the military, I bulked out a lot more muscle, a lot more knowledge, a lot more experienced. So from the kid that went in to the man that left, there's a vast difference, and there's a vast amount of experience, a vast amount of failure, and a small amount of success. But obviously it's the failures that prepare you for the horrors of war. It's the failures that build resilience, and it's the failures that ultimately make you the person you are today. So don't shy away from it, embrace it.
This guy was like the first man in, so he would be point man, he would kick down doors, clear out rooms, make sure it was safe for everybody else. He's probably like one of the hardest people I've possibly ever met in my life, and he's written quite a few books, he's been on TV quite a few times, and he's somebody that I've listened to on multiple occasions when I found life being a little bit challenging, and he's ultimately inspired me hugely on a couple of occasions. So to be able to shoot him was really exciting. I was really geared up to shoot him, and I was brought onto the job by a really good friend of mine, Adam Maggs. Adam Maggs was asked to do all the videography, so like to film some interview style questions for him to go onto his social media. And with that, we wanted to shoot a series of portraits that would coincide with the subjects of his previous books and previous sort of like shows. So they were First Man In, Mutiny, Zero Negativity, and Fear Bubble. So there was 4 themes that I was basically commissioned to shoot. And in terms of coming up with the ideas and the treatments for these shoots, because I'm an avid fan of this chap, it was easy for me straight away to like picture and vision where I wanted to take it creatively, which was pretty exciting. So what I'm going to do is just break down each shot and just talk about what I did from a light setup and show you some cutaways to explain those visually as well. So the first one I'll start with is Zero Negativity. The reason I'll start with this one is it's just super clean, super easy. So we put Ant in a cove, white backdrop. We had a key light, which was the Forza 300B with a big 120 octo box, no grid, no nothing, just a big clean soft light coming in at an angle just to light him. On first view, when we were looking at that, it was a bit flat sort of behind him, like he was kind of like merging into the background, so we knew we had to add a kicker. So then what we did is we set up a Forza 60B just over his right shoulder, and that's just creating a bit of a kicker separation, kind of like just pulling him away from that white backdrop. So we only used 2 lights in that setup, and the reason being is the theme was Zero Negativity, so we wanted it to be clean, fresh, open and airy, as if like there's zero negativity around you, as opposed to dark, moody and sort of scary and all that sort of jazz. So that was the first treatment. It went really well, and then once we had filmed him under those conditions, I then done the press shots. And as ever, in terms of my setup, I was using Capture One, shooting tethered. All of my lighting was Nanlite inside the Peli travel case that I've custom built, allowing me to sort of do these kind of shoots. From there, we then set up the next shot, and the next shot was Fear Bubble. Now this particular booklet he's wrote is it's really important to me, and the reason being is when I was going through the whole thing with the tumour like a year or so ago, and I was really worried and upset and scared, I was listening to his book quite a bit, and it helped me through on a lot of occasions where I felt really crap and bad about myself. I listened to that book and it helped me get through the fear bubble. You know, the fear for me, it was the fear of having cancer. It was the fear of, you know, having life ending way before you're kind of finished, you know, doing what you want to achieve. So I'd listened to it a lot. For me, it was really important to make this one count. So in terms of the treatment for that, what I wanted to do is just have Ant in a big open space. So we set him out in a big open space with a vintage style kind of backdrop. And then we had the Forza 60 with the PJ projector shining a circular shape behind him, which we cooled down. So because we had the Forza 60B, we was able to use the bicolor functionality to cool the temperature down. So we cooled the temperature down to create that kind of like moon effect, or that bubble basically. And the reason I made it blue is the fear bubble was based on climbing Mount Everest. Mount Everest is cold, blue is often associated with cold. So that was kind of like the overall creative direction that I took with that. Once we set up the PJ projector and we kind of had the backdrop set up, we then again used the Forza 300 with the softbox coming over from relatively the same angle that the PJ 60 was coming over to this side. So what we're doing is we're getting a bit of shadow. So we're having him lit on one side and then the light falls off on the other side to add that depth and mood. And the reason being is it's quite a deep, moody and moving book. So it made sense to have it in there. And that's contradictory to the zero negativity, because zero negativity is all about just openness and happiness and having no fear. Fear bubble is about accepting fear, embracing it and pushing through it. So we wanted to create a bit of a darker mood to that whole treatment. So that's how we went about doing that one. And then this is probably my favorite shot, and it's on the back of the computer behind me. So first man in. First time I come across Ant Middleton, I had watched him on SAS Who Dares Win, and I was like, yeah, this geezer's pretty cool. And the reason I come to that conclusion is I've lived in Colchester. I lived in Colchester for a few years. I played rugby there, and a lot of my friends are ex-military, serving in the paratroopers, so like free para, serving in Signals 216. I've got friends who served in the Navy and stuff. So I've always been drawn to military personnel, and a lot of my good friends are ex-servicemen basically. So like Nick, Ben, Sean, all of these guys, all people that have served, and I've got a lot of respect for him. And the same for Ant. So I watched him on this program and I was like, yeah, this guy kind of aligns with the stuff that I see value in. So his first man in it is about him being point man, is about him kicking down doors and clearing out rooms and stuff like that, and about having the mental toughness to be the first man in, to kind of overcome all fear and be so confident in your own ability that you can be the first man into one of the most dangerous situations in the world and still come out on top. So for this one, I really wanted to add a touch of cinematics to it. I really wanted to make it stand out and punch. So what we did is, again, we used the same space, the same studio, which is a little studio over in Greenwich in southeast London. There's a link down for the studio. So if you are based in London and you want to find a really good studio to shoot at, couldn't recommend this place enough. Absolutely fantastic for what we wanted to achieve on this occasion. So what we did at this time is we wanted to incorporate a door as well. It's a bit cliche, first man in, door, all the rest of it, but it tells a story in itself. When you see the Ant lined up with the door, with the way we kind of treated the light coming through the door, it tells you everything you need to know in an image without having to open our mouths. So we positioned Ant near the door, slightly turned out, Forza 300 coming over this side, pointing down at a sharper angle, so we're almost kind of putting him into a pool of light. As opposed to light coming in from the side and sweeping him, it's now angling down over the top. So that's how we keyed him. And then what I did is the Forza 60B again, outside the door, and we just basically had that set really tungsten, so like 2700 I think it was in terms of the Kelvin, and that's pumping that light through the door, so it looks like there's a bleed of light coming through that door, and it opens up your imagination to like what is potentially on the other side, rather than having it being moody and dark and scary and red and all that sort of stuff. The reason I created it tungsten was because, you know, to him, it's not about being scared on what's on the other side of the door. It's having so much self-confidence you can break through those barriers and move into that space confidently. So it made sense to have it more tungsten and sort of warmer, because to him it's a warm, joyful experience for him to dive into, which was pretty cool. So that was the third treatment, and that was for the first man in. And what I will do is at the bottom of this video I had links to all of the audio books and all of the references to these things. So if you've watched this video and you think, who is this Ant Middleton guy, go and check his stuff out, listen to some of his books. He's like super motivational, and then hopefully once you've listened to these books you can come back to the images that I shot and you can go, okay, I can see the correlation and it all makes sense from there. Then the last one was Mutiny. So Mutiny is pretty interesting. Ant basically took 9 other men, got on a wooden boat and sailed across the sea basically. Well, yeah, sailed across the sea. I can't remember the exact amount of days he did it for, but yeah, they ate beef jerky, survived off of like God knows how. And it's a real test of character. And the reason this happened is once upon a time there was a mutiny upon a ship, and the guys had to leave their captain and they had to go off for their own course, and they survived. And it's a real challenge to one's mental fortitude, and Ant obviously took this upon himself to do it with a group of people. And the people he did it with, some of them were like, you know, some of them were a bit rough around the edges, because it was all about trying to teach them the discipline, you know, from this scenario that would help them go forward in life to become better people and more, you know, achieve people, more accomplished individuals. So yeah, so Mutiny was interesting because of the boat. We wanted to add the feature of wood, so we positioned Ant against a wooden backdrop. In terms of how I lit it, so I used the Forza 60 overhead using the hard reflector to create a spotlight effect. So think kind of like Batman, The Dark Knight, kind of interview style scene. Now the reason I wanted to do that is Mutiny is about like putting the captain under the spotlight. You know, you're not happy with what's going on, so you create this mutiny against your captain. He is the focus of attention. So Ant wasn't the focus of attention, but you could see how his behavior would lead the others to believe that, because they're under so much stress. So even though the original story is that a group of them left, you know, under those circumstances, the captain's always going to be at risk of another mutiny, because he's got to push people to the end of their ability, basically, or what they feel is their ability to achieve. And some people snap, and that is what can create the aspect of a mutiny. So we had the wooden backdrop, and then I had the Forza 60 keying over the top, creating this spotlight over the top of him, which brings him out. And then I used 2 Litolite 5Cs, and I'm lighting the shelves with these behind me now. Now they're little RGB WW panels that have the full range of colour that you'll find in our mix pad, our mix panel, all the rest of it. What that basically does, what I did with those is I added the red, Mutiny, kind of like backlash red, all the rest of it. So I added that colour because I wanted that to fall on him. So rather than it just being him lit by the light above him, which I was had it dialed in at a cooler temperature, I had the 2 red bits just to show a bit of redness on his arms and kind of like bring to life the aspect of mutiny, so to speak. So that's how I lit that last one. Yeah, hopefully from the cutaways and the stills you'll be able to envision how I did this. Now, I took a load of equipment with me. I took Forza 500, I took 300, I took 200, I took the projector, I took Forza 60, I took Pavo tubes, I took Litolite Cs, and then when we got there, because, you know, when I got there, I arrived and I was like, actually, I don't need all this to do it. But what's good is to have that equipment in your arsenal to then be able to make the choice if you do or don't need to use it. In terms of how I plan a shoot, I'll show you some of my Pinterest boards for the Ant shoot now. So these help me plan the style of the shoot. And what I would do is when a client comes to me with an idea, I will basically create a Pinterest closed board. I'll throw a load of ideas in there, share it with the client, make sure they're happy, and then I'll start to build a lighting plan. So then I'll build a lighting plan of like how we create those shots. So I did that with Ant yet again, just so I was prepared. But even though I prepared, when I went to set, I was like, actually, I don't need all of this. So we adjusted and all the rest of it, and I used less kit than I thought I would. And it goes to show the majority of these treatments on a professional commercial shoot, still shoot, were shot with Forza 300B, Forza 60B, and Litolite 5Cs. So it shows that like Nanlite, obviously, you know, super affordable lights in terms of like LED panels and stuff like that. But some people might be, oh, it's not professional enough to do this. It's not Broncolor. It's not this. It's not Pro Photo. It definitely is good enough to do the job. And the reason I've transitioned fully now from using strobe is effectively, you know, the only reason you need strobe is if you've got real fast movement. I'm never shooting anybody at those speeds, so I just need consistent lights. And the great thing is, working with Adam on this job, is we set up the lights to do the video interviews, and then I just turned on my camera and started shooting. I didn't need to set up strobes and set up continuous. I had one source of light to shoot both video and stills, which is, it makes my life super amazing. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've got any questions, pop them down below. If you're wondering where to get one of these t-shirts from, this is donated to me by the amazing guys over at Take More Photos. They are a photo collective based in London and sort of active across the world. I'll add a link to the website. This is a must-have t-shirt for the still shooters out there. Until next time, hit the subscribe button, stay safe, and yeah, I hope you like the new studio too. Take care.